SBC Media.
Welcome to the iGaming Daily podcast, analysing the news from the betting and gaming industry all over the globe, supported by Optimove, the #1 CRM marketing solution for the iGaming market.
Branded slot games have been around for decades, with its popularity catapulted by the rise of online casino. The most compelling mix of popular franchises, iconic characters, and beloved pop culture is a recipe for success, an important onboarding tool for attracting and retaining new players. And this will be the conversation on today's episode of iGaming Daily, sponsored by Optimove, where I'm joined by Danny Lee, the business journalist for CasinoBeats, to go over all things branded slots. Danny, how are you doing today? You okay?
Yeah, I'm good. Good to be here, mate. Good to be discussing slots with you again. Feels like it's been a while since we've just focused on my area of expertise, I guess you'd say. So yeah, looking forward to it.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to just delving into slots. Like I said, it's been a while, and we've not really had a focus on. Like I said, this is kind of where I started my career at SBC, where you started yours. So it'll be interesting to see what developments have been made, because since obviously I've been started doing iGaming Daily and all the multimedia things, I feel like I've lost connection with slots, which is a shame, because I really loved it for the was it 2 years that I did it? It was thrilling for me, to be honest. I don't know if a lot of people can say that about slots, but it really is. I'm going to ask one question before we get into the sponsor of today's podcast, and that question for you, Danny, is: what is your favourite branded slot title?
Oh, what a question that is. I mean, I quite like some of the recent ones we've seen, to be honest. We'll definitely get into it a bit more, but seeing Light & Wonder's Squid Game machine at ICE was definitely an experience, and I saw a lot of other people enjoying it as well. So I'd probably pick that one out for now, but also I'm a huge fan of Breaking Bad and Better Call Saul, so I really like the new one from Playtech as well.
Yeah, there are some good shouts. I think. Don't worry, Danny. You don't have to ask mine. I'll answer for you. One of my favourite franchises is Jurassic Park. And before I got this job, before I delved even deeper into slot titles, I remember me and my brother, we used to go on 32 Red, and we used to play this Jurassic Park slot title. It was just Jurassic Park online slots. It was like really basic, but I feel like that was the start of like my, not obsession, but kind of love of slots came from just playing that game with my brother. And it would be a case of like, right, if we win £80 on this slot, we'll put £20 in. If we win £80, we'll go out on a night out. If we don't win £80, then we're not going on a night out. And it's that, honestly, that was kind of like how our Fridays went. It was really fun. So yeah, it was that one. The features were really, they were quite basic. It was just your free spins one, because it was Jurassic Park and that IP and that glorious T-Rex Rexy coming in on the scatters and the free spins with the Raptors. It was just fun. So
yeah, well, it's interesting that you pick up on that, really, because that's sort of what branded slots are all about, isn't it? If you've got a player that isn't really too experienced with slots, like you're saying you were, if they can see something that they're familiar with and that they're sort of a fan of, then they're likely to click on that. Like I think there's been a few Walking Dead games come out, haven't they? They sort of appeal a bit, and Rick and Morty, I've seen a couple of those as well. Blueprint Gaming's one in particular was certainly one that will have caught the eyes of a few customers. So yeah, it's quite an insightful topic in a way.
Perfect. And we are going to dive deeper into this topic, but before we do, it's now probably a really appropriate time to mention the supporter of the iGaming Daily podcast, and that's Optimove, the #1 CRM marketing solution for the iGaming market. 56% of the EGR Power 50 personalised player experiences with Optimove, and as a special offer, Optimove are offering new clients a free first month when they buy Optimove. For more information and to claim the first month, or the free month, go to optimove.com/SBC. Links will also be left in the podcast description below. And also, just a quick shout out for those interested in attending the CasinoBeats Summit at the Intercontinental in Malta on the 23rd and 24th of May. The super early bird tickets expire this Friday at midnight, so make sure to purchase yours by then to get 50% off, and that will be a saving of €300. Anyone is anyone who is interested in purchasing these super early bird tickets, I will leave a link to the website in the description below. So, Danny, this conversation for you, because this is a topic you wanted to bring up for the podcast today, and I believe this kind of stemmed from your time at ICE. You know, ICE is one of the most ideal events alongside our own SBC Summits to showcase new titles. And from my very, very, very brief entry into the XL, because again I was ill that week, there was so much on show. There was a ridiculous amount on show, and I'm actually really jealous that you managed to get around all the online casino stands and just to see what they were showcasing. So, first off, what caught your eye there? That's what I want to ask, actually. What caught your eye at ICE?
Yeah, well, I mean, with the job working on Slot Beats, we're constantly looking at what sort of new products are being launched, what sort of studios are releasing as maybe like flagship games, or their sort of games that they're hoping to stand out in this quarter. So it's definitely interesting to sort of look at those for online releases, but I would say that when you're surrounded by those land-based machines and the different sort of retail products there as well, they can't help but catch your eye a bit. And like I said, when you can combine those big releases with that sort of in-person experience, like I saw with this Light and Wonders Squid Game release, I did sort of think it did pique my interest in a way, and like I said, it did sort of cause a bit of a buzz as well. So it was certainly one of the more interesting parts of the event, I must say.
Yeah, I mean, I was watching a few of the interviews that you did at ICE, you reviewing them, and some of them were on the kind of suppliers showcase floor. And again, I was very envious when I was seeing like retail slot machines in the background, because they kind of spurned some memory of me when I used to, like, me and my partner, we used to go to the bingo hall, and like there was the slot machines there at the entrance, and we used to always play before we went in. Always play the Lord of the Rings cabinet game, and it was thrilling. And yeah, I was envious. But away from ICE, kind of what's really caught your attention in the slot sector in terms of like branding, licensing, and using popular IPs? Like I said, these have been around. Using brands have been around since not the dawn of slots, but very, very close after. And certainly since the rise of online casino, it's taken a kind of, it's just expanded itself into a new a new kind of dimension where there's so much coming out there, and we are in a golden age now of TV and film. So there's so many new brands coming out there. So what's kind of caught your eye?
Yeah, well, I suppose that's such a huge part of slots at the moment, is finding a way to make your slot stand out because of how sort of overcrowded, I guess you could say, the supplier industry is at the moment. And branding is such a crucial way for companies to be able to sort of stand out from that crowd. And I think looking at the different ways that sort of these companies are utilizing these like branding or IP, it's starting to sort of move a bit with the times. So you're looking at, as sort of like influencers become more popular with sites like TikTok and stuff, you're now starting to see sort of their influence on the slot industry. So we had Ruby Play did their series with, I want to say it was Luva de Pedrero. Apologies for Luva.
Apologies for not being able to apologise for not getting the pronunciation.
Yeah, apologies for my apologies. And sort of how different companies are now using figures as well as just like popular IP from, like you say, TV shows and movies and stuff. And also how sports is being utilised a lot more as well. So we've seen Aristocrats NFL Kickoff, which I think was launched last year, sort of playing on the branding of the league in general, which then also encompasses like all the different teams within the league to appeal to like such a vast audience of sports fans, really. So there's sort of more engagement with branding in terms of who's been selected and whether you're going for a TV show or a film, or you're going for a personality. So it feels like there's sort of a lot more being considered when it comes to securing that IP. And I'm sure as that continues, we will start to see a lot more of it, because it does kind of feel like something that is being utilised more and more.
Yeah, I think the interesting thing is when people think of like branded slot titles, they always think of like I said, the TVs or the films and that kind of IP, and they're really expensive IPs to gain, and it's really something which is you're never guaranteed success just because you've got an IP like that, and because it costs so much money to get that, you're already on the back foot a little bit, and there's a lot of pressure there. But operators really love the fact like you have that, because it is a great acquisition tool. What is interesting now is to see them going down this social kind of influencer route, or the influential figure within a certain kind of demographic, maybe a certain sport, or like a certain social media platform, so to say. And I mean, the video game sector have been doing it for years. Tiger Woods' PGA Tour golf game, like that. And then it went to Rory McIlroy, I think. So they just shifted to whichever golfer was popular at the time. And that was a great kind of attraction tool for the video game sector, because people would buy it because of Tiger Woods, because of Rory McIlroy. And look at even FIFA. Like, they did such a great kind of collaboration with Ronaldo over the years. Cristiano Ronaldo, not Ronaldo number 9, because there's only one GOAT. Like, people flooded to it. People flooded to FIFA anyway. And that's an IP in itself, because we've just seen how EAFC have kind of taken it that way. But people flooded to it because they were Ronaldo fans. And people actually went to Pro Evolution Soccer, or PES as it's known, because of Messi. And like, moving this into kind of the slot sector again, it's really interesting to see just how big of an impact long-term these influencers or influential figures now could have on branded slots compared to its film and kind of TV counterpart. But I think I kind of touched it, but what kind of benefits are studios witnessing when producing branded titles?
So I think... Sorry.
That's all right. Get it out.
So I think it offers a whole different level of engagement when it comes to sort of acquiring and retaining players, because like we were talking before, if someone's familiar with something, they're going to be more likely to want to engage with that and play that game if it's a TV show that they like, or a film that they like, or an influential figure that they're a fan of. And in a way, it can sort of help a lot with the design process as well. So obviously, you're given the branding, you're given themes and characters there from the get-go. Let's say, for example, with Breaking Bad, Playtech's new slot. And when you sort of coming through that design process, you're managing to bypass a lot of sort of character design. What you're going to choose for symbols becomes a lot easier, because you've got things to pick out of the television show. And there's not only sort of a speed to release sort of given by that as well, there's also so having that sort of quicker design process allows you to maybe focus a bit more on other features of the game, like the bonus features themselves, and sort of how you can make them more unique and put a bit more time into the actual mechanics of the game. I also think what we witnessed a couple of weeks ago is why it's quite a huge benefit to use branding, in that events are so important for our industry in terms of forming new partnerships, exposing your brand. And when you can sort of provide a look into a game that does have branding, it does just seem to create a bit more of a buzz. You're not sort of having to look at a cabinet that's just got a load of sort of, for lack of a better word, random games that aren't inspired by branding or use IP or certain themes or whatever. Instead of sort of having to sift through and think, oh, which game do I actually want to play here? You might just go, oh, there's the Squid Game slot. I'm definitely going to have a go at that. Or there's the Breaking Bad or Star Trek or whatever it is. There's that sort of pull there that is sort of underestimated a bit, I think.
Yeah, no, I absolutely see where you're coming from there. I think one of the things that slot studios need to kind of consider, because there's not just benefits, you also have to kind of look at the negatives things. And when you do get a an IP brand, you have that copyright. You have to kind of also adhere to strict guidelines, because you can't just do what you want with this brand, because you are taking something which is already established and it's already got a fan base, and then you are responsible for continuing that kind of responsibility and the correct message approach. And it restricts, I think, kind of game producers' ideas, and kind of it's more of a challenge to overcome them. But I feel like you then limit yourself to kind of how much you can actually do. I think suppliers might play it a bit more safe than kind of thinking out the box and like looking into different game mechanics and like features and what could be really interesting when they've got the overhanging pressure of an IP and a studio thinking, "Better watch what you're doing there. Like, is that really adhering to like the message that we're trying to portray?" I mean, I don't know what message Peaky Blinders is trying to portray, but you know, there's still the kind of that thing. And again, we've already talked about the cost. That's really something. Again, it is a con. It's not a benefit for studios when they're producing slot tiles. It's kind of a con that they have to kind of come over. But yeah, no, I think there's still that benefit for slot tiles, because I don't know the percentage, and I can only go off personal kind of experience. Whenever I enter a operator platform and I look for a slot tile to play, I know I've got more knowledge now of what slot tiles are out there, but I will always be attracted to a brand that I know, and that might be a Megaways. It might not just be a film or a TV show. It might be like a Megaways or a Popwin. But it's always those familiar, because I always say this, we are creatures of comfort as humans. We always go with what we are comfortable with. We never really branch out from something that's quite alien to us. So I would always go with a branded topic, a branded slot, and I feel like that will always be a benefit, and that will always be a great acquisition tool for suppliers and operators to use. I've just realised, I think maybe because of my rambling, we've missed the halfway mark, so we're just going to take a quick ad break, and then when we get back, we're just going to talk a bit more about kind of some common themes that we see with slots, kind of the dangers and challenges when selecting IPs, and what we think about kind of the increasing numbers of licensed slot titles shows kind of innovation within the space, or lack of there. So yeah, make sure you join us after the break.
Brazil, a global economic powerhouse, deeply passionate about sports, and now home to one of the hottest markets in gaming. And we're giving it the full SBC treatment. Join industry leaders, market experts, and all the major players in the country for 3 days of content, exhibition, and epic networking at the first ever SBC Summit Rio.
Welcome back. Like I mentioned, we're going to go through a few more things regarding branded slots. And Danny, I've got a question to ask. Like, is there kind of a common theme seen within the licensing that is being acquired for slot games?
Yeah, I'd say there's definitely a sort of common theme within a lot of these titles. Obviously, you've got TV shows that have more sort of adult themes in there, like Breaking Bad, Peaky Blinders. You've got sort of crime and death and all that good stuff that makes a brilliant TV show. So there's obviously an appeal to an audience that is sort of age to be able to be playing these sort of games. Obviously, that does not to say that there isn't like teenagers that enjoy those programs. I know I was a teenager when I fell in love with Breaking Bad and started watching Peaky Blinders, but I just suppose it can sort of span across multiple generations in that way. You've got maybe an audience that is becoming the newer generation of slots players that has just started to get into gambling, and they can sort of relate, or they can recognize images or references to these sort of TV shows that are being used. But there's also a bit of an appeal that's being made to maybe an older audience with some of the TV shows or films that are being used. So you look at Star Trek The Next Generation. It's not a show that I was watching when I was younger because I was just too young. But there's definitely an audience out there.
Stargate or Star Trek?
Star Trek The Next Generation, that was the 90s, right? So, yeah, just a little bit before my time. But that means that there is definitely an audience of older players out there that will be very familiar with the show, long-term fans of it as well, that can create a bit more of a fandom and a bit more of a appeal to one specific audience, which can be quite good. And then you've got, I think it was Light and Wonder again, actually, that had used the Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory film as branding. Now, I think that's
quite... That the new Wonka film?
No, that's the Gene Wilder, the original one.
Played that when I was at SBC Summit, Latino America in Miami in the Hard Rock.
Yeah.
I had a pretty healthy win on that one. A fantastic slot title. Sorry.
Exactly. It really is a good slot, and I think we will sort of pick up on that a bit, how important it is to sort of make it engaging beyond the branding, like that game certainly did, and a few others that we've mentioned. But that was quite an interesting one, I think, because obviously it's quite an old film now. Still probably a popular film that gets watched by families and what have you, but in that way it sort of appeals to an older audience because they're more likely to have seen it. Whereas if you look at the other iterations of the film, like you just mentioned, the Wonka film that came out, you would never get away with doing a slot on that, I don't think, because it's just come out, it's aimed at kids, and even the Tim Burton sort of 2005, 2006 Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, I think maybe even that would be a bit of a stretch to cover. But because it's the original film and it's sort of a piece of American film history in a way as well, it's obviously fine to use. And it, again, like I said, it was a really good slot with lots of good features. But I think that just sort of goes into the sort of challenges that are faced when picking up that IP. And as well as the cost, you do have to consider, are we going to be appealing to the right audiences? And are those audiences going to be profitable for us if they play it?
Yeah, no, it's a good point. I won't do my ramble again, but I will say, like, if you look at the Goonies, like, that slot was released in, I believe it was 2018, and it is still heavily used for marketing initiatives across the gambling space. So it kind of goes to show, like, if you have that strong IP with a strong fan base and a history, like a Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, the Gene Wilder one, and the Goonies, you will have that longevity and you'll have returning players because people are, again, creatures of comfort. They'll keep coming back to it because they know it, they love the themes and the genre, they love, like, the imagery that, like, resonates from that film into that slot title, and it just gets something going in your brain, a cog moving in your brain to kind of reminisce on the good old days of when you first experienced that film. Yeah, I think it's a great power for slots. But what are kind of like the dangers or challenges faced when selecting kind of an IP from pop culture to use in gambling products? And you kind of already mentioned a little bit there, where if you used the Wonka slot from the new film that came out in comparison to kind of the Gene Wilder one, there's a danger because you're attracting different audiences.
Yeah, I suppose that's the main challenge behind sort of figuring out if your IP is going to work. You've got to do a lot of research and development, I'm sure, in figuring out what audiences are going to react the best to the branding that you're considering. And I feel like that's why we see a lot of sort of branded slots that cover all bases in a way, like Squid Game, I think Netflix most watched ever show. So that's, although obviously will have been watched by some children and stuff, it's covering a lot of, well, most of the older generations as well. And making sure that your IP fits within the age brackets to be able to appeal to not only the correct audience in terms of legitimacy, but also to be appealing to a wide audience. And obviously cost is huge as well. You've got to consider if the cost is worth it. Like if you're paying as much for such a mainstream TV show like Squid Game, getting Netflix involved, there's obviously a lot of money involved there. And same with TV programs like Peaky Blinders and Breaking Bad. Whereas you can go for more like cheaper options that are out there. We've seen, I won't go into any title specifically, but you see sort of slots based on old comic strips from newspapers or stuff like that, where you consider they're still targeting to an audience in some way, but it may be a bit more niche, a bit more targeted and specific. And
Yeah, Beetle Bailey from Lady Luck Games comes to mind, that one.
Yeah, there was Popeye last year as well. I think Vibra Gaming have done one on Popeye before, definitely, and yeah. But then I suppose the challenge there is to, like we sort of touched on earlier, take that IP and make it into an engaging game where the sort of features and mechanics carry it from just being your average branded slot into a game that's actually quite a key part of a studio's roadmap, and like a game that could maybe stand the test of time as well. And that's just all about being innovative with how you sort of make that branding your own in the form of a slot.
And we're kind of coming to the end of the podcast now, and we'll kind of go through this part relatively quickly. Do you think kind of the increasing number of licensed slot titles shows innovation within the slot space, or kind of a lack of it? And I would argue the case that, again, I mentioned it earlier, because you've kind of got higher ups and external factors from studios outside of the gambling sector who own these IPs. They have a pressure to the guidelines they need to meet, and kind of how it needs to be portrayed to their audience. That might steer away from game developers, product managers kind of innovating within that space and trying to play it a bit too safe. But then there's a beauty of smaller innovations trying to kind of increase, or trying to create something new while also staying within that safe space, that bubble. In a way, I just wanted to get your thoughts quickly to kind of round up the podcast.
Yeah, well, I think as well as that sort of hindrance on innovation that you are right about, the fact that there's higher ups and there is a brand there to protect. Some might see it as sort of low hanging fruit, because you are just acquiring the IP and then running it from there, using that to sort of sell your game in a way. And like I was sort of touching on earlier as well, you get to bypass some of the design elements. You don't have to create characters from scratch or anything like that, because they've already been created. So it's all about sort of how the game is taken beyond the IP to sort of decide how innovative we can call them. If you look at that Willy Wonka game that you had played and you said it was engaging, it did have features, it had sort of an array of different bonuses involved with it. For example, different jackpot functionalities and stuff like that. But they're not all like that. Some of them are just maybe a 5x3 slot with, some scatter wins in there somewhere, and the branding is just doing all of the work for it. So it's about really, I don't want to say it again, but making it your own. So taking it beyond the branding you've been given and then forming it into a slot that you truly believe has engaging features, mechanics that will sort of keep players entertained in a way that's more than them just liking the characters and liking the themes within the slot because they're used to the branding. It needs to be as engaging as you would do any of your other slots on your production line, but then utilising the branding to then take it one step further rather than just having the branding be the be-all and end-all for the slot.
No, yeah, perfect. No, you make a good point, and I can continue talking about branded slots till the cows come home, but sadly we are way over time as it is already. Danny, thank you for joining us today. Any relevant links that are useful for branded slots that are on the SlotBeats and CasinoBeats website, I'll leave in the description below. But apart from that, thank you for listening to iGaming Daily. Make sure you tune in tomorrow for more iGaming Daily podcast sponsored by OptiMove. Thank you and goodbye.
Thank you for listening to today's iGaming Daily podcast, supported by OptiMove, the #1 CRM marketing solution for the iGaming market. If you want to find out more about some of the subjects raised today, feel free to explore any of the sites in the SBC News Network or check out the latest edition of the SBC Leaders magazine. Happy reading.